I went to Seattle recently, and like anybody that's in comics, you always try to check out either comic book store or used bookstores or both. I was able to go to both, and so I just kind of want to show what I got during my trip. First, I went to the Fantagraphics bookstore. I got to meet Colin Blanchett there, co-publisher of the Eisner-nominated magazine Canon, and also co-publisher of Die With Your Mask On. Um, I've known Colin for a lot of years online. It was nice to meet with him, and went to the pilgrimage to the Fantagraphics bookstore. You should go there if you're into independent comics. It's a nice little store. It's got a lot of newer stuff, and it's got the famous half-price room in the back. This was in the half-price room in the back. This is a graphic novel by Rich Tommaso from 1997. Let's Hit the Road. I've heard of Rich Tommaso, never read any of his work, but I was really intrigued because Jeremy Stone, who goes by comics_elitist on Instagram, did a really nice interview with Rich Tommaso, and was so good that it got me to be really interested in starting reading some of his work, older or newer. So I picked this up. This was in the half price back room. So I'm looking forward to reading this. Looks interesting. Check it out. Also in the back, I found 2 issues of Alex. This was a 6-issue miniseries by Canadian cartoonist Mark Kalesniko. I've read some good things about it online. Colin suggested it, so I'm going to read these issues, even though I'm missing, I think one's issue 4, one's issue 6. So I am going to miss, some of the stuff, but if I find it interesting enough, I can always pick up the other issues, I think, without too much of a hassle. Something else in the half-price room was Pope Hats by Ethan Riley, and I think Ethan Riley was a nom de plume. The way that Colin explained it was that towards the end, he actually started, later on in his career, started going by his real name. Not sure. I forget the reason why there was a name change, but this looks interesting. This is from 2011. This is published by Ad House Books. Let's see what else I got. In the half-price room, but this was free. This is Weathercraft. This is the free comic book day sampler by Fantagraphics from 2010. Weathercraft is a graphic novel of the Frank universe that Jim Woodring did. I do have that large book, and I'm going to master the title, One Beautiful Spring Day. I had the big, massive hardcover edition with that limited poster. And I've always wanted to get into Jim Woodring, but I never really knew where to start. So I found this, and what I liked about it a lot was that it has meet the cast of Weathercraft, so it actually explains some of these characters. I think that'll be very useful in understanding a lot of his other work. And speaking of Jim Woodring, this was not in the half-price section, but this was the Art of Jim Woodring collection by Bonsai. Bonsai is a French publisher that's been publishing these lovely collections of various artists, Geiger, Mobius. I had the Mobius one. These things are, they come shrink wrapped with this user manual. The reproduction, the paper are excellent. They look really good. This has, as you can see, black and white and color. All these books, magazines, what you want to call them, always come with 1 or 2 posters from the artist. This is pretty damn large, so I'm just going to show some of it here so you can see the quality. Really lovely, really cool poster into his work. And if you've never seen these Bonsai editions before, they all come with a user manual. The first half is in French, the second half is in English. Usually features an interview, biography, maybe some comics, something else that'll be useful to kind of maybe understand Jim Woodring a little bit before I start tackling a lot of his work. Okay. In the back, I found 8 Ball #1. This is actually a first printing, but it's got some you know, wrinkles or lines here. Some of the pages are a little yellow, so it's not like I'm gonna flip it on eBay, you know. But I did read this. I actually read this on the plane. It was kind of interesting because I've read Pusey, which is the first chapter of Pusey is in this book. But some of this other stuff I have not ever read. So it's kind of interesting seeing some early Dan Clowes. And it was half price on the cover, so it was $1. What else? When I was there, they actually had Barn Sour. This is a community comics newspaper that's printed in Seattle for the Seattle area by Seattleites. And what I like is that it includes comics, it's free, but it also has a lot of resources, especially for people who, you know, have hard time getting meals. Has community kitchen information, information that you might want to say is activist related, but it's really good stuff. And there's this one section here about the benefits of using the Signal app. I've been using Signal for a few years. It is the best end-to-end encryption chat app that you can find that's not military grade. It's very good. And it really does a nice comprehensive job explaining it. But more importantly, or just as importantly, just a lot of comics. Here is where to get a meal. That's a lot of good comics from little cartoonists. Just really good stuff that they do. What else did I get? I got there. I found this Fool's Errand by Chuck Baldock. I have most of Chuck's work, and I think he told me about half of this or so was printed in Told to Tell number 5. But there's some work in here that wasn't printed there. I'm a big fan of Chuck's. I actually got to sit and hang out with Chuck for a few hours one day on my trip. I think there's one more day I don't have this story. Chuck is a really cool guy, good cartoonist. I'm happy to support him. And what else did I get from the Fantagraphics bookstore? I got these 4 issues of the old Drawn and Quarterly magazine. If I understand it correctly, these were published monthly. Then they did them quarterly. And then the last 3 years, they just did these annuals. And I have those annuals. Big, oversized with French flaps. This is all 1991, 1992. And it's all Canadian cartoonists. And this is like a whole subgenre that I'm not very familiar with. Yeah, I mean, I love Joe Matt. I've read Chester Brown. I love Seth. But there's a lot of Canadian cartoonists that I don't know. So this is like a Chester Brown cover. It says featuring Joe Matt. And it does have Joe Matt's work, but it's in that style that he did that was published like originally, I think, by Kitchen Press when it was the first graphic novels, were these really tiny panels. And I'm definitely going to bust out the magnifying glass for this, but I'll read it because it's Joe Matt. Dan Clowes cover. Dan Clowes always sells, especially during this era. Joe Sacco's story. I don't know if I have this. I don't know if this is in Notes from a Defeatist or not. I had to check that out. What else? And one of these has a Seth story that he wrote about Joe Matt. Some really interesting, beautiful black and white work here. Looking forward to reading some of this. Let me see what else I got in here. Yeah, here. Some things I think you should know about Joe Matt by Seth. But what Seth does is that he draws it in the style of Joe Matt's art. Joe Matt, Seth, and Chester Brown were all close friends. They were known as the Toronto Three in the 90s. Just coming up with some really great work. Looking forward to checking these out. So that was that. Then I went to a couple of bookstores, used bookstores. And I stayed in Fremont. And if you ever stay in Seattle, I recommend staying in Fremont. It's close to the city, but it's not in the city. Having been to the city, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. I like Fremont. Fremont's nice. It's low-key. Got a nice vibe. A lot of great restaurants within walking distance. A very chill area. Anyway, the Felia's bookstore in Fremont, I found Abandoned Cars by Tim Lane. I had most of Tim Lane's graphic novels, but not this one. This was published in 2008. It's been out of print. I seen it online. People ask for a lot of money for this book, and I always like to hold out for a better deal. This is brand new, even though it's in a used bookstore. I'm a big fan of Tim Lane. Just think his art, storytelling, his approach, this view he has of America and Americana is really fascinating. Like I said, just a great artist, and got a great deal for this. So really happy to have found this, and this also reminds me of something that I do. I'll go through a bookstore and I'll do like once, but then I'll go back and I'll do a second sweep because oftentimes I miss something on the first go around, and this was definitely the case. I passed by this, didn't see it, went by the second go around, found this. I'm really happy to have gotten this. And I went to a store called Twice Sold Tales. And they had a lot of interesting graphic novels, a lot of very expensive, like signed editions and all that. But I found this for $8. This is the oversized Quimby Mouse. And maybe to, show like size, this is like a regular comic. And this is Quimby Mouse. This is the complete Quimby Mouse. This was published in 2003. It was rather interesting because Chuck and I were talking earlier that day about how a lot of these greats like Chris Ware, Tomina, Klaus, that once they've locked in and found, I would say, their formula or their style, that they stop being risk takers, being inventive. It's just they got the formula, and it's a shame because sometimes when they were actually taking chances, they came up with some interesting work. And this is from that era of Chris Ware that I never knew about. The first book of his I read was maybe 7 years ago, was Jimmy Corrigan, and I've always heard about the Acme Novelty Library and all this stuff with Quimby and all this stuff. I always heard about this, but never read it, never found the complete collection until now. Great price, and I will definitely also be busting out the magnifying glass for this. And you can joke all you want, but wait till you get a few decades behind you and then try to read something this small without like having the paper fairly close to your eyes. So that's it. That was my Seattle haul. It looks like a lot. I really didn't spend very much. I got good deals, which is what I like to do. Had a great time. Seattle's a cool area. Picked up some cool stuff that I would never find in Miami. Miami is not good for comics. It's very bad for independent comics. So this is one of the reasons why I like to go to, when I go out of town, I like to go to these bookstores and these independent comic book stores that they're in the area, because I'm just gonna see things and that I'm not gonna see anywhere else. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting, and thanks.